Imagine sneaking into a bedroom in the dead of night.
Okay, setting a scene.
Yeah, right. So you're sneaking in, and you have a loaded gun.
Right.
You point it at the person sleeping in the bed, and, you pull the trigger.
Sounds pretty cut and dry.
Well, your intention is crystal clear, right?
Yeah.
You want to commit murder. But there's a plot twist you completely didn't see coming.
Oh.
The person in the bed actually died of a massive heart attack, like an hour before you broke in.
Wow. Okay, so you just shot a corpse.
Exactly, you just shot a corpse. So the big question is, can you go to prison for murder? Or I guess, can you go to prison for attempting to murder someone who was already dead?
That is, it sounds like a movie plot, but it perfectly illustrates this central tension we're looking at today.
Yeah, today we are answering that exact question by wading into, honestly, one of the most fascinating and kind of bizarre areas of criminal law.
We're talking about inchoate crimes.
Right, inchoate crimes.
It's a weird word, but really, we're exploring that exact boundary line.
Yeah.
Where a dark thought in your head transforms into an actual punishable crime.
Exactly. And if you are listening to this deep dive right now, I know exactly what you're doing.
Studying.
Oh, yeah. You are preparing for the multi-state bar examination, the MBE.
The big one.
The huge one. And on top of that, English is your second language. So you are constantly translating, centuries-old common law terminology into your native language, just trying to figure out what these rules actually mean in the real world.
Which is exhausting. It's hard enough for native speakers.
Right. So our mission today is to cut through that archaic jargon. We are going to use plain English, really memorable analogies, and a clear mental map.
Because when test day arrives, you don't want to panic.
Exactly. You just visualize the framework we build today, and the right answer will hopefully just jump right out at you.
And honestly, the legal framework here is highly logical once you strip away all the Latin and the Old English.
Thank goodness for that.
Yeah, the law is essentially trying to solve a very specific problem here. How do we punish people who try to cause harm, but for whatever reason, they fail?
Right. So to help organize this, I want you, the listener, to picture a massive oak tree.
Okay, I like this. A tree.
This tree is your mind map for the exam. The thick trunk of this tree, that's the foundational rule of inchoate crimes.
The basics.
Right. And growing out of that trunk are three distinct branches.
Okay.
The lowest branch right near the bottom is the asking branch.
The asking branch, got it.
Moving up, the middle branch is the agreeing branch.
Right.
And then the highest branch, right up at the very top, is the trying branch. So that's asking, agreeing, trying.
And those three words map perfectly to the three specific offenses that the MBE loves to test.
Yes, they do.
Solicitation, conspiracy, and attempt.
But before we dig into the trunk, I want you to write these three letters on your mental scratch pad or real scratch pad. S-C-A.
S.C.A.
Exactly. That is your master mnemonic for this whole area of law. S-C-A stands for the official names, right? Solicitation, conspiracy, attempt.
But they remember what they fundamentally are. You can think of S.C.A. as starting crimes ahead.
Starting crimes ahead. I love that.
You've started the criminal process, but the main event, like the actual harm to society, is still ahead of you. It hasn't happened yet.
Right, which captures the absolute essence of that weird word, inchoate.
Yeah, inchoate literally translates to unripened or unfinished.
Unripened, like a green banana.
Exactly like a green banana.
It's a banana, but it hasn't, reached its final form.
No.
An inchoate crime is a green banana. You intended to break the law, you took steps toward breaking the law, but the ultimate offense didn't happen.
The bank robbery, the arson, the kidnapping, they failed.
But the law decides it can't just sit around and wait for you to finish. You've crossed a threshold where society says, nope, you need to be stopped and punished right now.
And that brings us to the core rule supporting the trunk of our tree. Because these crimes are unfinished, right? Because no actual harm has occurred yet. The law requires absolute certainty about what was inside your mind.
Which means all inchoate offenses are what we call specific intent crimes.
Specific intent, yes.
Let's really unpack the mechanics of that because it's huge for the exam. Why does the law demand specific intent here as opposed to just, punishing someone for being reckless or careless?
Well, think about it. We are punishing an action that hasn't fully materialized.
Okay.
If you accidentally start a fire because you were, say, recklessly playing with fireworks near a barn.
Bad idea.
Very bad idea. And the barn burns down. The law can punish you for the completed crime of arson based purely on your recklessness.
Because the barn is gone. The harm is real.
Exactly. The harm is tangible. But if the barn doesn't burn down, say it just scorches the paint, we can't punish you for an unfinished accident.
Right, an unfinished accident isn't a crime.
Exactly. The law needs proof that you actively desired the destruction. You must have a specific goal in your mind to achieve that criminal outcome.
So, without that targeted malicious goal, an unfinished act is just, well, a mistake, not an inchoate crime.
You must want the bad result to happen.
You must want it. Okay, so that's the mental requirement on our trunk. Now we hit a procedural requirement, and honestly, this one trips up a lot of students.
The doctrine of merger.
Yes, merger. What is that in plain English?
Merger is essentially the legal system's way of preventing double punishment for the exact same physical sequence of events.
Okay, let's use a second mnemonic here to lock this in. Write down SAM or SAM.
SAM.
SAM stands for solicitation and attempt merge.
Solicitation and attempt merge.
Right. So if you ask someone to rob a bank and they actually go and do it, the asking disappears. It merges into the completed robbery.
Get swallowed up.
Exactly. And if you try to rob a bank yourself and you succeed, the trying disappears into the final success.
Now, you can be put on trial for both. The prosecutor can accuse you of both.
Sure.
But when the judge actually hands down the sentence, you only get punished for the completed bank robbery.
Because of double jeopardy, right?
Precisely.
Yeah.
The mechanism driving this rule is the double jeopardy clause of the Constitution. The government cannot punish you twice for the same offense.
Yeah, right. So if you successfully rob a bank, the act of trying to rob it was a necessary, unavoidable step to get there.
You literally cannot succeed without trying.
So to punish you for the attempt and then punish you again for the success is fundamentally punishing you twice for the same physical movement.
Which is unconstitutional.
Got it. So that covers the S and the A in SAM, solicitation and attempt merge. But what about the C? What about conspiracy, the agreeing branch?
This is the primary trap examiner said on the MBE.
Listen up.
Conspiracy does not merge.
Never.
It does not merge. If you and a friend agree to rob a bank and then you successfully rob it, you will receive two separate punishments, one for the conspiracy and one for the robbery.
Wait, I struggle with the logic there.
A lot of people do.
Yeah, because if attempt merges because it's a necessary step to succeeding, isn't agreeing to rob a bank with my partner also just a necessary step to succeeding? Why does the agreement survive as a separate punishment?
It comes down to how the law views the danger of groups.
Okay, groups.
A single person acting alone is dangerous, sure. But when two or more people formally agree to commit a crime, the law considers that agreement to be a distinct, elevated threat to society.
So it's the teamwork aspect.
Right. Groups encourage each other, they divide the labor, they are statistically more likely to succeed, and honestly, they're much harder for the police to stop.
So the agreement itself, the actual formation of a criminal enterprise, is treated as a completely separate harm from the robbery itself.
Exactly. It is a separate harm, therefore it does not merge.
That makes a lot of sense when you put it that way. The group dynamic is the extra danger. So SAM solicitation and attempt merge, but conspiracy survives.
We also have to watch out for the modern rule here.
Right, the Model Penal Code, or MPC.
Yes, if you commit multiple inchoate crimes, all aimed at the exact same target, say you ask someone to rob a specific bank, then you agree to do it, and then you try to do it.
All for that one single bank.
Right, the MPC says you can only be punished for one of those unfinished crimes.
So the state can't just stack 3 separate unfinished punishments on you if the ultimate goal was just one single crime.
Exactly. They cannot artificially multiply your punishments if your core intent was singular.
Okay, so we have a really solid trunk now. We understand unfinished crimes, we get specific intent, and we know the rules of merger. SAM.
Time to climb the tree.
Let's do it. Let's move up to the first, lowest branch of our tree. Branch 1, the asking branch.
The legal term being solicitation.
Right. So what are the elements of solicitation in simple English?
Well, officially, it's defined as enticing, encouraging, requesting, or commanding another person to commit a crime, with the specific intent that the person actually commits it.
So everyday English. It's just asking someone to break the law.
Pretty much. I will pay you to burn down my competitor's store.
But the fascinating and honestly terrifying thing about solicitation is the timing.
It is so fast.
The crime is 100% complete the absolute microsecond those words leave your mouth.
Yes. The threshold for criminal liability here is incredibly early.
It does not matter how the other person reacts, does it?
Not at all. They could laugh in your face, they could walk away, they could immediately dial the police.
But you're still on the hook.
Exactly. The law isn't punishing their reaction. The law is punishing you for attempting to pollute someone else's mind with a criminal idea.
You introduced a dangerous proposition into the world.
That is the harm. That right there.
So let's trace how this asking phase interacts with the rest of the tree. Let's do a scenario. Person A asks person B to commit a murder. The words are spoken.
Okay, at this exact moment, person A is guilty of solicitation.
Boom, done. Now, if person B says, absolutely not, you are crazy, the story ends. Person A goes to jail for solicitation, and person B goes home to watch TV. But what happens if the danger escalates? What if B says, yes, I will do it?
The moment person B says yes, the legal landscape shifts entirely.
We climb the tree.
We do. We are no longer just dealing with a unilateral request. We now have a mutual agreement. The asking branch immediately jumps up to the agreeing branch.
So person A and person B are now guilty of conspiracy to commit murder.
Exactly. And if person B actually follows through and commits the murder, we look back at our trunk, we apply SAM.
Solicitation and attempt merge.
Right. The original solicitation, the asking, merges into the completed murder. It gets swallowed up. But the conspiracy, the agreement survives.
So they would both be punished for murder and conspiracy to commit murder.
Two separate charges. That progression from solicitation to conspiracy to completed crime is a very frequent fact pattern on the MBE.
So you have to track exactly when the agreement forms and which prior acts merge.
Precisely.
Okay, but what if I ask someone to commit a crime and literally the very next second, I deeply regret it?
You want a do-over?
Yeah, I want to take it back. I think the legal term here is renunciation. How does the law handle someone who just changes their mind?
Well, it depends entirely on whether the jurisdiction follows the traditional common law or the modern model penal code.
Okay, let's look at the strict old-school common law first. I like to think of solicitation under the common law like throwing a heavy rock at a glass window.
That's a great visual.
Right, because the moment the rock leaves your hand, the crime is complete. It doesn't matter if you instantly yell, wait, I'm so sorry, I wish I hadn't thrown that.
Too late. The rock is already in the air.
The words have already left your mouth. Under the common law, taking it back is never a defense. You are guilty. Period.
It is a harsh rule, for sure, but it is rooted in that early threshold we discussed. The harm was introducing the idea, and you simply cannot unintroduce an idea.
That makes sense, but modern law is a bit more forgiving, right?
It is. Modern law recognizes that we want to incentivize people to stop crimes before they happen. That is where the MPC comes in.
So how does the MPC change my rock analogy?
Under the MPC, taking it back can be a defense, but only if you can outrun the rock, jump in front of the window, and catch it before it shatters the glass.
Oh, wow. So a simple change of heart is not enough.
No. You must voluntarily renounce your criminal purpose.
Yeah.
And you must actually thwart or completely prevent the commission of the crime.
So if I hire a hitman and then change my mind, just calling him and saying, hey, never mind, isn't going to save me if he goes ahead and does it anyway.
Not under the MPC.
I have to physically stop him, like maybe by calling the police and warning the victim to successfully use renunciation as a defense.
Exactly. You have to clean up the mess you started. The defense is earned through prevention, not just regret.
Got it. Now, there's another defense we need to explore here, and it's a big one. Impossibility. Specifically, factual impossibility.
Oh, examiners love this.
Right. So let's say I ask you to steal a very specific, rare sports car from a garage across town. I offer you $10,000. You agree. But neither of us knows that the garage actually burned down yesterday, and the car is just a pile of melted metal.
Total loss.
Right. It is factually impossible to steal the car. Am I still guilty of soliciting you to steal it?
Yes. You absolutely are. Factual impossibility is almost never a defense to inchoate crimes.
Even though the car didn't exist?
Even though it didn't exist. Because the law looks at your mental state. You had the specific intent that a crime be committed, and you took the action of asking someone to do it.
Right.
The fact that the universe intervened and made the crime impossible doesn't change the fact that your mind and your actions were criminal.
Okay, but there is one very specific, totally fascinating exception to this, where you cannot be guilty of solicitation, even if you clearly asked for a crime to occur.
Yes, and this is a great MBE nuance. This arises when the criminal statute in question was designed specifically to protect the person who is doing the asking.
Okay, let's break that down in plain English. The classic example in the text is statutory rape.
Right. Statutory rape laws exist because society has decided that minors lack the legal capacity to consent to certain acts.
The entire framework of the law is built to act as a shield around the minor, protecting them from adults.
Exactly, it's a protective shield.
Therefore, if the minor is the one who initiates the encounter, if the minor actually asks the adult to engage in the illegal act, the minor cannot be charged with the crime of soliciting statutory rape.
Because it'd be a logical contradiction.
Right. The state can't use a law designed to protect a vulnerable class as a weapon to prosecute that exact same vulnerable class.
It's a brilliant piece of statutory interpretation. The protection of the statute immunizes them from the solicitation charge. The shield cannot be used as a sword against the person holding it.
I love that. The shield cannot be used as a sword. Okay, so that covers branch 1 thoroughly. We understand asking. The words leave the mouth, the rock is in the air, and S-A-M tells us it merges if the crime succeeds.
Let's climb higher up the tree.
Branch 2, the biggest, most complex, and honestly most heavily tested branch on the MBE, conspiracy.
The agreeing branch.
What are the elements of conspiracy? Let's lay them out.
Conspiracy has 4 core elements at common law. First, an agreement. Second, between 2 or more persons. Third, an unlawful objective. And fourth, the specific intent to achieve that objective.
Pretty straightforward.
But wait, most modern jurisdictions add a 5th requirement. An overt act in furtherance of the plan.
Okay, an overt act. We will definitely get to that. But let's start with the absolute heart of the matter, the agreement. Does this agreement need to be like a signed contract? Do we need to shake hands in a dark, smoky room?
Not at all. The agreement doesn't need to be formal. It doesn't need to be written down. And astonishingly, it doesn't even require spoken words.
No words at all.
None. The law allows juries to infer an agreement based entirely on what we call concerted action.
Concerted action, meaning people moving in a coordinated way, right? Like musicians in a concert.
That's a perfect way to visualize it.
So if you and I walk into a bank and without a single word or glance, you draw a weapon to cover the lobby while I immediately jump the counter with a duffel bag.
A jury can look at that perfect synchronization and say,
right,
there is 0 chance they did this spontaneously. They must have agreed beforehand.
Our silence, paired with our coordinated action, literally proves the agreement.
Precisely. However, examiners love to test the boundaries of what constitutes an agreement, especially with what we call a secret helper scenario.
Oh, yes. The secret helper. Let's really explore this one.
Go for it.
Okay, imagine a scenario where A, B, and C plan to rob a warehouse. They've mapped it all out. Now, there's a security guard named D who works at this warehouse.
Okay.
D secretly despises his boss and wants the warehouse robbed. He overhears A, B, and C planning the heist. So, on the night of the robbery, D intentionally leaves the heavy security gate unlocked to help them.
He's making it easy for them.
Exactly. But A, B, and C have absolutely no idea D did this. They don't even know D exists. They just think, wow, we got really lucky. The gate is open.
So D shared the criminal objective.
Yes.
And D even took physical action to help the crime succeed.
Yes, he did. So is D part of the conspiracy?
Oh.
Why not? D practically handed them the warehouse.
Because there was no meeting of the minds. A conspiracy requires a mutual understanding. You cannot agree with someone secretly. If A, B, and C didn't know D was helping, they couldn't possibly have formed an agreement with him.
So D gets away with it.
Oh, no. D isn't going to escape justice. D will be heavily prosecuted for aiding and abetting the burglary. But D cannot be charged with the specific inchoate crime of conspiracy.
Because the agreement is the absolute non-negotiable prerequisite.
No mutual agreement, no conspiracy.
That makes sense. And that leads directly to the second element you mentioned, between 2 or more persons.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't conspire with yourself. But this element fundamentally changes depending on whether we look at common law or the modern MPC, doesn't it?
It changes drastically. We have to talk about the bilateral versus unilateral approaches.
Okay, let's break those down. Bilateral. Two-sided.
Yes. The bilateral approach is the traditional common law rule. It requires 2 real, genuine, guilty minds. Both parties must actually intend for the crime to happen.
Let's use the classic undercover cop sting. That's always on the exam.
Always.
So I want to buy a massive shipment of stolen electronics. I find a guy in a parking lot who says he can supply them. We shake hands, we agree on a price, we set a time for tomorrow.
Okay.
But surprise, the supplier is an undercover FBI agent.
Oh, no.
He is just pretending to agree so he can arrest me. Under the common law bilateral approach, am I guilty of conspiracy?
Under the strict common law, you are entirely innocent of conspiracy.
Wait, innocent, but I wanted to buy stolen goods.
You had a guilty mind, yes. But the FBI agent did not. He never intended to actually sell you stolen goods. Because there was only one guilty mind, the legal requirement of a two-sided agreement was never met.
The conspiracy was just a phantom.
Exactly, a phantom agreement.
Wait, I have to push back on that. I mean, I understand the logic of the bilateral rule, but what about the modern unilateral approach? The one-sided rule under the MPC says I am guilty of conspiracy in that exact same undercover cop scenario.
Yes, it does.
But why? If I agree to buy stolen goods from a cop, there's literally zero actual danger to society because the cop is never going to let the deal happen. The crime is fundamentally impossible from the very start. Why should I go to jail for a conspiracy that could never hurt anyone?
Because it represents a profound shift in legal philosophy.
Okay, tell me more.
The common law focused on the reality of the partnership. But the modern MPC focuses entirely on the culpability of the individual's mind.
Just my mind.
Right. The law realizes that your willingness to join a criminal enterprise is the true danger. The fact that you got unlucky and chose an undercover cop doesn't make your mind any less dangerous.
I see. If it had been a real criminal, I would have followed through.
Exactly. The MPC says, we don't care what the other person is thinking, we only care about you. If you agreed and you meant it, your one guilty mind is enough to form a unilateral conspiracy.
Wow. So modern law polices my subjective intent, completely regardless of the objective reality of the situation.
That is a massive distinction for the exam. Bilateral needs two guilty minds. Unilateral only needs one.
Listener, write that down. Bilateral needs two, unilateral needs one. Okay, and speaking of the number of people, we must discuss the Wharton Rule.
The Wharton Rule.
This rule deals with crimes that inherently, by their very definition, require two people to commit them.
The most common examples you'll see are adultery or a duel.
Right. You cannot commit adultery alone, and you cannot have a sword fight with yourself.
Hopefully not. So the Wharton Rule states that if a crime naturally requires two people, then an agreement between just those two people does not constitute a conspiracy.
So wait, if two people agree to have an adulterous affair, they are only guilty of adultery once it happens, not conspiracy to commit adultery.
Correct.
Well, why?
Go back to our earlier discussion about why conspiracy doesn't merge. Remember?
Because groups are more dangerous.
Exactly. We punish conspiracy separately because the formation of a group adds an extra layer of danger to society that isn't present when someone acts alone.
Right.
But if the underlying crime like adultery already requires two people, there is no extra danger created by them agreeing. The group dynamic is already baked into the baseline definition of the crime.
Ah, I see.
To punish them for conspiracy would essentially be punishing them twice for the same baseline level of danger.
So how do you ever have a conspiracy for adultery then?
You need to elevate the danger beyond the baseline. You need a third person.
A third person.
Yes, if person A and person B agree to the affair, and person C, a friend, agrees to rent the hotel room under a fake name to help them hide it.
Now you have three people involved in a crime that only requires two.
Exactly. The danger level has elevated. Now A, B, and C can all be charged with conspiracy.
That is fascinating. But again, keep your errors straight, listener. Because the modern MPC uses the unilateral one-sided approach, it completely ignores the Wharton Rule.
Correct. Under the MPC, if one person intends to commit adultery, that's enough for a conspiracy. The Wharton Rule is strictly a common law defense.
Very important distinction. Okay, we also need to briefly touch on spouses and corporations. At old common law, a husband and wife were viewed as a single legal entity.
Which meant they couldn't conspire just with each other, because legally they were only one person.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Thankfully, the modern world has realized how absurd that is. Today, almost everywhere, a husband and wife can absolutely form a conspiracy together.
Yes, they can.
What about a business? Can a corporation be guilty of conspiracy?
Yes. A corporation is treated as a legal person. It can conspire with other companies, and it can conspire with its own employees. Though logically, you usually need multiple employees colluding with each other to prove the corporation was engaging in a conspiracy, rather than just one road agent acting alone.
That makes sense. Okay. One more rule about the number of people. It's called the acquittal rule.
Also a favorite on the exam.
Let's say you and your friend are put on trial together for conspiracy. You sit at the very same defense table. The jury comes back and says, your friend is not guilty. They acquit him. What happens to your conspiracy charge?
If all the other alleged co-conspirators are acquitted at the same trial, You cannot be convicted of conspiracy.
Because if the jury officially declares that everyone else is innocent, it is legally impossible for you to have had an agreement with them.
Right. You can't conspire with thin air.
Exact.
Precisely. However, be careful here. This only applies if they are acquitted at the exact same trial.
Oh, really?
Yes. If your friend flees the country and is never caught, or if he is tried 2 years later in a totally different courtroom, you can still be convicted.
So the rule only kicks in when a single jury makes a direct, simultaneous finding that no agreement existed. All right, let's pivot to the mental state required for conspiracy. We know its specific intent. You must have the intent to agree and the intent to achieve the criminal goal.
Yes.
But how far does this stretch? The sources provide a legendary hypothetical here, the merchant example.
This is a classic.
Let's really dig into this because it perfectly illustrates the line between normal capitalist business and criminal liability.
Okay, imagine a merchant who owns a hardware store.
Okay, just a normal hardware store.
Right. A customer walks in. The merchant recognizes this customer as a notorious local bank robber.
Like he's been in the paper, everyone knows him.
Exactly. The customer brings a heavy crowbar, a ski mask, and a blowtorch to the register.
That's a suspicious shopping list.
Highly suspicious.
Yeah.
The merchant knows with absolute certainty that this customer is buying these items to break into a bank vault tonight.
So the merchant has full knowledge of the crime. He is facilitating the crime by providing the tools. Is the merchant a co-conspirator to the bank robbery?
No. Mere knowledge is not enough to form a conspiracy.
Wait. I can sell a blowtorch to a known bank robber, knowing exactly what he's going to do with it, and I'm totally safe.
Yes, as long as you are just conducting ordinary business.
That's wild.
It is, but remember, conspiracy requires specific intent. You must actually want the robbery to succeed. If you sell the blowtorch at its normal retail price, you are entirely indifferent to whether the robbery succeeds or fails.
I just want my $40.
Exactly. Your mind is not invested in the criminal objective.
But the law has a tipping point, right?
Hmm.
When does the merchant's indifferent greed cross the line into specific criminal intent?
The line is crossed when the merchant alters their business practices in a way that proves they have a stake in the crime's success.
Okay, what does that look like?
The text gives 3 really clear examples. First, charging an exorbitant price.
Ah.
If that blowtorch usually costs $40 and the merchant says, I know what you're doing, so I'm charging you $500, the merchant is now extracting a premium based on the illegal nature of the act.
They are profiting off the danger.
They've joined the conspiracy.
Okay, what's the second way?
The second way to cross the line is taking a percentage of the cut, like saying, take the blowtorch for free, but bring me back 10% of whatever's in the vault.
Wow, okay. Now, the merchant's financial success is directly tied to the robbery's success. They explicitly want the bad result. Specific intent is established.
Exactly. And the third way is providing specially manufactured goods with no legitimate use.
Like what?
Well, if the robber asks for a military-grade, silent laser cutter, and the merchant orders it specifically for them on the black market.
The merchant is no longer running a hardware store.
Exactly. They are actively tailoring their actions to ensure the crime succeeds.
So the merchant example teaches us that you cannot just stumble into a conspiracy. You must take an affirmative step that proves your mind is aligned with the criminal goal.
Yes. And speaking of steps, that brings us to the overt act requirement.
Right, the fifth element we mentioned earlier.
At common law, the second you shook hands on the agreement, the conspiracy was locked in.
Done deal.
But modern law realized that, people talk a big game. People agree to crazy things at a bar at 2 a.m. and then go home and sleep it off.
Very true.
So modern jurisdictions require an overt act to prove you were actually serious.
So an overt act takes the agreement out of the abstract realm of thought and places it into the physical world.
Exactly. But the critical distinction for the MBE, and you must remember this, is that an overt act does not need to be illegal.
Yes, doesn't.
Not at all. It can be a completely innocent, mundane activity.
Like what?
Renting a van, making a phone call to check bank hours.
Yeah.
Buying a map of the city, buying a ski mask.
No, those things are illegal on their own.
Exactly. But if they are done in furtherance of the agreed-upon plan, they satisfy the overt act requirement.
And once that overt act happens, the trap springs shut. The conspiracy is legally locked in for everyone involved.
Yes.
If there are 5 people in the group and only one person goes to buy the ski masks, the overt act is satisfied for all 5 people instantly. The act of one is the act of all.
That's a great way to put it. Though there is a small exception under the MPC. If the planned crime is an exceptionally serious first or second degree felony like murder or a major terrorist act, the MPC says we don't need to wait for an overt act.
The agreement itself is so inherently terrifying that the law steps in immediately.
Exactly. No overt act needed for the really bad stuff.
Okay, the agreement is locked, the overt act is done. Now we must confront the absolute most dangerous part of joining a conspiracy, the scope of liability. Just how much trouble can your partners get you into?
A lot. And this is governed by one of the most famous doctrines in all of criminal law, the Pinkerton rule.
Listener, write it down, underline it, circle it. Pinkerton, what does it do?
The Pinkerton rule states that every member of a conspiracy is legally liable not just for the conspiracy itself, but for any substantive crime committed by any co-conspirator, provided two conditions are met.
Two conditions, what are they?
First, the crime must be committed in furtherance of the conspiracy's goals. Second, the crime must be a foreseeable consequence of the conspiracy.
Okay, let's apply this. I agree to act as the getaway driver for a bank robbery. I sit in the car outside, just reading a magazine.
Okay.
My partners go inside. The plan is strictly to steal money and leave. Nobody gets hurt. But inside, a security guard pulls a weapon, and one of my partners panics and shoots the guard dead.
A tragedy.
Right. Am I the guy just sitting outside reading a magazine in the car? Am I guilty of murder?
Under Pinkerton, yes. You are guilty of murder.
But I wasn't even inside.
Let's run the test. Did the shooting happen in furtherance of the robbery?
Well, yes, it was to eliminate a threat to the plan.
Right. Was it foreseeable? Yes. If you agree to an armed takeover of a bank, it is highly foreseeable that a gun might discharge and someone might buy.
Wow.
You set a dangerous chain of events in motion, and the law holds you accountable for the foreseeable ripples, even if you didn't pull the trigger.
That casts an incredibly wide net.
It does, which is exactly why the Model Penal Code rejects the Pinkerton rule.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The MPC argues that it is fundamentally unjust to convict someone of murder if they never intended for anyone to die.
Okay, so how does the MPC handle it?
Under the MPC, you are only liable for the substantive crimes of your partners if you actively aided and abetted that specific crime.
Huh. So sitting in the car aids the robbery, but it doesn't aid the shooting.
Exactly. The MPC demands a much tighter link between your actions and the specific harm.
That is a massive split between jurisdictions. Common law and federal courts use Pinkerton's wide net. MPC uses a much stricter aiding and abetting standard.
You have to know both for the exam.
Definitely. Now, how big can these webs of liability get? The sources give us two classic shapes to visualize complex conspiracies. Let's draw these on our mental tree.
The first shape is a chain.
A chain.
Imagine heavy metal links connected in a long line. A chain conspiracy usually involves a sequential process where each person is a necessary link for the overall scheme to succeed.
The textbook example here is a narcotics distribution ring, right?
Yes, let's build the chain.
Okay, link 1. The cartel boss who manufactures the drugs.
Right.
Link 2. The smuggler who gets them across the border.
Link 3, the regional distributor who warehouses them.
And link 4, the street-level dealer who actually sells to the end user.
Now think about this. The cartel boss has never met the street dealer. They don't know each other's names. They made no direct agreement with each other whatsoever.
But the law looks at this and sees what's called a community of interest.
Community of interest, meaning they all survive together or fall together.
Right. The boss makes absolutely no money if the street dealer doesn't sell. And the dealer has nothing to sell without the boss. Every link relies on the entire chain holding strong.
And because of that mutual dependence, the law treats all of them as members of one massive single conspiracy.
So the street dealer is in a conspiracy with the cartel boss.
Yes. And under the Pinkerton rule, they are all potentially liable for the foreseeable crimes committed anywhere along that chain in furtherance of the drug ring.
That is terrifying. Okay, so that is the chain. One giant conspiracy. Now let's contrast that with the second shape. The hub and spoke.
Think of a bicycle wheel.
Right. One central hub with many independent spokes sticking out of it.
In a hub and spoke arrangement, you have a central figure, the hub doing illegal business with many different people, the spokes. But the critical difference here is that the spokes do not rely on each other.
Let's use mortgage fraud for this one. I am a corrupt banker. I am the hub.
Okay.
You come to me, and I help you submit a fraudulent loan application to buy a yacht. You are spoke number 1.
Great.
The very next day, a totally different person comes to me, and I help them fake documents to buy a mansion. They are spoke number 2.
Now ask yourself, Does spoke number 1 care if spoke number 2 gets their mansion?
No. I just want my yacht. I don't know the other person. I don't need them to succeed, and their failure doesn't affect me at all. There is zero community of interest between the Stokes.
And because there is no mutual dependence, the law does not treat this as one giant conspiracy.
It shatters it.
Exactly. It shatters it into many smaller, separate conspiracies. The banker is in a conspiracy with you. The banker is in a separate conspiracy with the other person. You are only liable for your own specific spoke.
That is an excellent visual. Chain equals one big conspiracy. Hub and spoke equals many small ones.
Exactly.
We are nearing the end of the agreeing branch.
Oh.
Let's talk about getting out. Withdrawal. You joined a conspiracy, the overt act happened, but now you're sweating and you want out. Can you escape?
At traditional common law, no.
Never.
The crime was complete upon agreement. You cannot unring the bell.
Okay, what about modern jurisdictions?
Under the majority rule, you have a brief window. You can withdraw after the agreement, but before the overt act occurs.
So if you agree on Monday, but the ski masks aren't purchased until Wednesday, you can withdraw on Tuesday.
Exactly. But I can't just quietly ghost the group chat, right?
Right, you can't just stop replying.
No. You must take affirmative action. You must communicate your withdrawal clearly to all your co-conspirators, or you must notify law enforcement in time for them to intervene.
And if you are under the strict MPC, you must go even further, right?
Yes, you must actually thwart the success of the conspiracy to successfully use withdrawal as a defense to the conspiracy charge itself.
But listener, here is a massive exam tip. We just talked about withdrawing from the charge of conspiracy. As we saw, it's very difficult once the overt act happens. But what about withdrawing from the Pinkerton rule? What if I just want to stop being liable for all the future crimes my crazy partners are going to commit?
That is a crucial distinction. Even if it is strictly too late to withdraw from the conspiracy charge, because the overt act already happened, you can always withdraw to cut off your liability for future substantive crimes.
So how does that work?
If you give proper notice to the group that you are out, you will still go to prison for the initial conspiracy charge. But if they go rob the bank and shoot a guard the very next day, you are completely shielded from the robbery and murder charges.
You severed your ties before those specific crimes occurred.
Exactly. You can stop the bleeding, even if you can't cure the original wound.
Okay, listener, take a deep breath. We have conquered the massive agreeing branch.
We covered a lot. Unilateral versus bilateral, the Wharton rule, the merchant example, overt acts, Pinkerton, chains, and hubs.
It's a lot, but you have it on your mind map. Now we climb to the very top of our tree, the highest branch. Branch 3, trying.
The legal word is attempt.
Attempt is the bridge between preparation and completion. It is the exact moment when an abstract plan transforms into imminent physical danger.
The elements are fairly simple on paper. A specific intent to commit a crime, coupled with a substantial step toward completing it, and finally, a failure to finish.
Because if you succeed, Sam takes over and the attempt merges into the finished crime. So here, we are only analyzing failures.
Right.
Let's focus on this phrase, substantial step. I want to contrast this immediately with what we just learned in conspiracy. For a conspiracy, an overt act can be buying a ski mask. Is buying a ski mask also a substantial step for attempt?
Absolutely not. And you must not confuse the two on the exam.
They sound similar.
They do. But an overt act is a very low bar. It just proves the conspiracy is real. A substantial step for attempt is a much higher bar. The law requires conduct that strongly corroborates your criminal purpose.
It must move you past the realm of mere preparation and into the actual zone of execution.
Yes. Let's use a metaphor. Think of the crime as a pot of water on a stove.
Okay.
Buying the ski mask, looking at a map, renting a getaway car that is turning the burner on. The water is warming up. That's mere preparation. That's an overt act.
But attempt requires the water to hit the boiling point. You have to be right on the verge of the crime happening.
The MPC provides specific examples of what constitutes a substantial step. Lying in wait, which means physically hiding near the scene to ambush a victim.
Or unlawful entry like actually breaking the lock on the door of the building you plan to rob.
Or possessing materials specially designed for the crime at or near the place of commission.
So standing outside the bank doors on a Friday night, wearing the ski mask, holding a crowbar, you are not preparing anymore, you are trying. The water is boiling.
That is the modern substantial step test. But we must also acknowledge the traditional common law approach, known as the dangerous proximity test.
Dangerous proximity? That sounds even stricter.
It is much stricter. The common law required you to be so close to completing the crime that there was almost no opportunity left to change your mind. You had to be dangerously close to the finish line.
So the modern substantial step test allows police to intervene a bit earlier. They can arrest you while you are lying in wait, rather than forcing them to wait until you actually reach for the bank doors.
Exactly. It's safer for society.
Okay, so the physical threshold is very high. Now let's look at the mental threshold. We established on the trunk that attempt requires specific intent.
You must want the bad result.
Right. And this creates some incredibly counterintuitive legal logic when we look at certain types of crimes. Let's look at arson.
Arson, the burning of a structure, is generally a crime of malice. It does not require specific intent. If you get drunk and recklessly shoot flaming arrows into the sky and one lands on your neighbor's roof and burns their house down, you are fully guilty of arson. You were reckless. You didn't specifically intend to burn their house, but your recklessness caused the harm, so the law punishes you.
But what if the arrow lands on the roof, smolders for a minute, and then goes out? The house doesn't burn. Can I be charged with attempted arson for my recklessness?
No. And this is the mind-bending part. Attempted arson requires specific intent.
Oh, wait, really?
Because attempt is an inchoate crime, the law must look purely at your mind. Since the harm didn't happen, we can't punish your recklessness. We can only punish you if you actively, specifically desired to burn the house down.
That is wild. The unfinished attempt requires a higher level of malicious intent than the finished crime.
It's weird, but it's logically consistent with the rule.
Let's apply this logic to another crime. Involuntary manslaughter. Involuntary manslaughter basically means killing someone by accident, usually through gross negligence.
Like driving a car at 100 miles an hour through a school zone and hitting someone.
Right. So apply our rule. Can you be charged with attempted involuntary manslaughter if you miss the pedestrians?
Let's think about it. Attempt requires specific intent. You must specifically intend to achieve the outcome. But involuntary manslaughter is, by definition, an accident.
Can you specifically intend to have an accident?
No, that's an oxymoron. If you intend to hit them, it's not an accident, it's attempted murder.
Exactly. Attempted involuntary manslaughter is a logical impossibility. Because you cannot specifically intend to act negligently, the crime simply does not exist.
That is a beautiful piece of legal reasoning. You
Yeah.
cannot try to have an accident.
Okay, as we near the top of the tree, we run into our old friend impossibility one last time. Factual versus legal impossibility.
The rules remain consistent. Factual impossibility is no defense. Legal impossibility is a defense.
And this brings us all the way back to the hook of our entire deep dive. The dead body in the bed.
Let's solve the mystery.
You sneak in, you point the gun, you intend to murder the person, and you pull the trigger. But they died of a heart attack an hour ago. You shot a corpse. What happens?
Let's break it down in court. The prosecutor first charges you with murder. You raise the defense of legal impossibility.
Because the law defines murder as the killing of a living human being.
Exactly. It is legally impossible to murder a corpse. The judge agrees. The murder charge is dismissed.
But the prosecutor doesn't give up. They charge you with attempted murder. Now what?
Now you try to argue factual impossibility. You say, Your Honor, it was factually impossible for me to kill him because his heart had already stopped.
Sounds like a good argument.
But the judge looks at the rule for inchoate crimes. Factual impossibility is no defense. The law asks two questions. Did you specifically intend to murder a living human? Yes. Did you take a substantial step by pulling the trigger? Yes.
So the fact that the universe secretly altered the circumstances without your knowledge is totally irrelevant to your criminal mind.
Exactly. You are guilty of attempted murder.
You go to prison for trying to kill a dead person. Because your mind was guilty and your actions crossed the boiling point. That is incredible.
It really highlights what the law cares about here.
Okay, the final concept on the attempt branch. The very last leaf on our tree. Abandonment. You've taken the substantial step, but right before you finish, you decide to stop. Can you abandon an attempt?
Under the strict common law, the answer is an absolute no. Once you cross the threshold of a substantial step, the crime of attempt is fully realized. A change of heart comes too late.
So if I am standing at the bank doors in my ski mask and I suddenly feel a wave of intense guilt, throw my crowbar in the bushes and walk away, the common law says the police can still arrest me for attempt.
Yes, you already crossed the line.
Wow.
However, the model penal code and many modern jurisdictions recognize that we want to encourage people to back away from the brink, even at the last second. They allow a defense of voluntary abandonment.
But the key word is voluntary.
Yes. What counts as voluntary? It must be a complete, genuine, internal change of heart. It must be a true renunciation of your criminal purpose.
So if I'm picking the lock on the bank and I hear police sirens approaching and I drop my tools and run, is that voluntary abandonment?
No, you didn't have a change of heart. You just recognized a sudden risk of apprehension. You are stopping because of external pressure, not internal morality. That is not voluntary. You are guilty of attempt.
What if I'm trying to pick the lock but my tools break or it just starts pouring rain and I say, this is too hard tonight, I'll come back tomorrow?
Again, no. A decision to delay the crime until a more favorable time is not a renunciation of the criminal purpose. You still want to rob the bank. You just want to do it when it's easier. That is not voluntary abandonment.
What if I decide the bank is too tough, so I walk down the street and decide to rob the jewelry store instead?
Changing victims or altering your target does not wipe away the fact that you attempted the first crime. You must permanently abandon the entire criminal endeavor to earn the defense.
And what if there are two of us trying to pick the lock, and I have a genuine change of heart and walk away, but my partner stays and keeps trying?
Your abandonment might save you, but it does absolutely nothing for your partner. You cannot force an abandonment on an accomplice who refuses to withdraw.
Wow. Okay. We did it. We have climbed the entire mind map. Let's take a quick walk back down the tree to anchor this in your memory before test day.
Sounds good. We started at the trunk. Unfinished crimes. They all require specific intent.
And we learned the merger doctrine, SAM, solicitation and attempt, merge into the completed crime to prevent double punishment.
But conspiracy does not merge, because the group agreement is a separate, elevated danger.
Then we climbed branch 1, asking. Solicitation, the rock through the window, complete the absolute moment the words are spoken.
We climbed branch 2, agreeing. Conspiracy, unilateral versus bilateral. The merchant crossing the line from business to intent, the overt act.
The sprawling web of Pinkerton liability and the difference between interconnected chains and isolated hub and spokes.
And finally, branch 3, trying, attempt. Pushing past mere preparation to a substantial step, the boiling point.
And the realization that you cannot attempt an accident, all governed by our master mnemonic, SCA. Starting crimes ahead.
It is a vast amount of material, but when organized logically, the patterns emerge clearly. Before we sign off, I'd like to leave you with a final thought on why this area of law is so compelling.
I'd love that.
Think back to the dead body scenario, or the undercover cop sting. Incohate crimes force us to confront the fact that the legal system isn't just policing our physical actions. It is actively policing our imagination.
Policing the imagination.
Yes. In almost every other area of law, there must be a victim. There must be a bruised face, a stolen car, a burned building. But here, the law punishes the pure, abstract desire to do evil, even when the universe makes that evil physically impossible to achieve. The law looks at your mind and says, you are a danger simply because of what you are willing to imagine doing. As you review your notes tonight, keep asking yourself, at what exact temperature does a dangerous thought boil over into a punishable act? Where is that microscopic boundary line between human freedom and criminal liability?
When you look at it that way, a dry legal rule suddenly becomes a profound philosophical threshold. Listener, trust your mind map. Trust SCA and SAM.
When the exam throws confusing scenarios at you, find the tree. Find the specific intent.
You've got this. We wish you the absolute best of luck on your MBE preparation. Go crush that exam.